Okay, so welcome everyone to our little chat here. Self-sabotage coach Meredith Wyness and self-sabotage coach Caroline Foster. And we just thought we'd get together, didn't we, Meredith, and have a chat basically about how productive we can be and how awesome we can be if, just in general, people gave up, booze, TV, caffeine. And it's something that we've been working on, isn't it, Meredith? Do you want to tell everyone how you've managed to give up these three?
Oh, crikey. So I've probably had a journey of about 10 years overall, from when I started to think, okay, I need to make some changes because things aren't really working. But I had my biggest probably awakening moment 3.5 years ago when I hopped on the scales on my 39th birthday and was horrified and terrified, and thinking about the amount of alcohol that I was drinking to sedate my greatness rather than have it
Yeah.
flourish, and the potential of leaving my children without a mother and dying young really hit home to me. Um, yeah, I was a pretty heavy drinker, 2 bottles of wine every night, followed by 2 gin and tonics, and perhaps a couple of shots of vodka from underneath the sink when no one was watching.
Mhm.
Um, and I had the realization that, okay, yeah, it's now or never. It's now or never.
Yeah,
So
and that's quite a strong thing you said there, like, the thought of leaving your kids without a mother. And it's certainly something that like I try and get over to people when I'm talking to them about this, because when you start chatting to someone about maybe thinking about giving different things up, and you sort of see their eyes roll and they're kind of like, oh, I don't really want to have this conversation. But it's an important conversation to have, isn't it? Because it can just impact your life so much. And like you said, it's not just, the sedating of your greatness that you were doing with the alcohol. And it was a weight gain, and then obviously weight gain leads to diseases like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancers, all sorts of things. The impact of that, if you hadn't stopped, could have been massive.
yeah. So for me, when I used to drink, it would be about, I've had a stressful day. I need to take the edge off my day. Um, Feeling unloved and unappreciated in my relationship, feeling invisible. So if I drink, then I can be more confident. Um, and if I drink, I don't have to worry about my worries until tomorrow. But in all reality, I was just compounding every negative emotion that I had, and it added to my anxiety of and feeling of overwhelm. But it was just a perpetual cycle, and yeah, it was my worst day stuck on repeat in many
Yeah.
ways. Yeah, but since stopping, probably about 3 months after quitting, I literally felt like I was 10 foot tall and limitless. I like to refer to it as the afterglow.
That's
There was
amazing.
positive effects immediately,
Hmm.
and it was literally from one day to the next when I said, right, tomorrow I never drink again, and that was that. But that's not to say that that's not the only way to do it. Even if you're weaning yourself off it, there's no right or wrong way to approach this. It's about progress, not perfection, as we all know,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So yeah,
definitely. And you're going to feel
be easy on
benefits even
yourself.
if you cut it down, aren't you? You're definitely going to feel benefits. Because, like I was saying to you before, when we were chatting, before we came on live, like I gave up caffeine and I gave up watching TV pretty much, well, nearly a year ago. So sort of like our first lockdown started in March, and that's when I decided to give up caffeine and TV, and like that felt brilliant for me. But like I don't know, for some reason I haven't been as quick to give up alcohol completely, and I drink very little now, like very very little.
Mm.
um and even the fact that I'm not having as much as I would have had before, I'm feeling so much better for it. And
Yeah.
so it's made me go, do you know what? I gave up caffeine and I
Hey,
never
yeah,
thought I would. So it's like, why do I drink at all? Like it just, and it
yeah,
is, then we obviously know because we're self-sabotage coaches, it's that sort of bringing you back. You know, you might be rising up. You know, I've started the business and I'm loving it, and like I was saying to you, you know, I'm having success with it because, you know, I had paying clients today that, you know, paid to listen to me talk to them, which was lovely. But you know, there's something there that's like dragging you back down and saying, well, you're not
Mm-hmm.
going to be that successful. And
Yep.
caffeine was doing that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
TV was definitely doing that. And
Yep.
so, yeah, why would I not give up the booze? It doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah. Depending on how deep you want to go into this, I mean, obviously learning from what we've learnt, there's a whole big control grid at play here.
Yeah, sure.
It's not just simply a matter of quitting.
Yeah.
But for me, it was a massive realization that I don't need this in my life. It doesn't serve me anymore. And it was interesting because I was putting off a different vibration and getting so much more back. Positive things were gravitating toward me without even any effort. It was like you're aligning with what you're supposed to be doing, and now you're being rewarded for it. Yeah.
And that must feel good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Honestly, life is so much more beautiful without alcohol.
And the word I've noticed that you use is like sedate, because that's like you're sedating like the worries, the fears, the uncertainty and things like that. And I took a while to think about it. And like I said to you before, like you know, I don't drink that much. It would be a glass of wine if I did. And the times that I've had that glass of wine in recent months, it's always been after I've like, you know, you all do it, like we all do it, we sort of like maybe looking at like what's going on in the world, or and just starting to feel like, oh, you know, you that dark feeling comes over you and you have to like pick yourself back up, don't you? And it's when like there's fear, or when there's you know, sort of sadness or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, yeah, you want to sedate those feelings because they're not good feelings. But there's something that you know, Jason Christoph, so our mentor, both of our mentors, he says about sort of the sedation, and like you should feel the pain. So if you've had a bad day, you should feel that it's been a bad day. Or if something horrible has happened, you know, you should feel that pain, because then when you something good happens to you, you also feel that positive, that
The
good, that real,
joy,
yeah, the joy.
yes,
Yeah.
multiplied times 1,000. Yeah, it's and yeah, and getting sober is not a beautiful process in the beginning. It's really messy and it can be quite terrifying. The biggest thing I faced was being terrified of failing at stopping drinking, and failing because I'd drink again. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the biggest and most real fear for me. Um, and yeah, like where the subconscious mind, when you understand how the subconscious mind works, and it did happen for me, I call it the subconscious pushback. It's because when the subconscious realizes you're going into unfamiliar territory and leaving to be in another tribe, whether that's a tribe of one or two,
Mm-hmm.
or doesn't matter, it will go, hang on a minute, I don't like what you're doing there, and I'm going to sabotage you. So I'm going to pull you back to a perceived place of safety.
Yeah.
So for
And
me, there was those moments, you know, in a social situation where I was like, oh, maybe I could just have one and it would be okay.
mm-hmm.
And everybody else is doing it. And I think it's important to remember, you know, these various lockdowns that are happening throughout the world. I'd quit coffee last year, but as soon as lockdown happened here in New Zealand, I was afraid, and I
Mm-hmm.
went straight back to drinking coffee
To the
because it
familiar.
was familiar and
Yeah.
it was comforting and it was sedation because I didn't want to have to think about the gravity of it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then it also severely impacted how I was viewing the world and how I was viewing my own strength and my own power. Um, so yeah, thankfully it didn't last too long.
So how did you pull yourself back then? You know, you went back to caffeine, but then you managed to get off of it again. What did you do?
I think it was the accountability of where I wanted to be as an individual. I want to be a successful, independent businesswoman,
Mm-hmm.
and drinking coffee did not serve that purpose whatsoever. I mean, there might be people listening going, but I love my
Yeah,
coffee.
that
And
was
don't get
me.
me wrong, I love my coffee too. It's black, strong, and with
Yeah.
cream. And that's how I used to drink it. Um, but then when you realize what it does to the brain, taking away 52% of the oxygen, you can't make rational thoughts. You're living in the limbic system of fear, flight, fight or flight. You can't make adult decisions when you're in that brain. You're just constantly
And that's
in
the
that state.
important thing. If you're making bad decisions, how can you be a successful entrepreneur? Because you've got to make these decisions all the time. And sort of, you've got to take a bit of a risk with some things. You have to really like look ahead and think where you want to get to and put all the steps in place. And if you are in that sort of fight or flight um, situation, that's because of the caffeine or whatever it is, then
Alcohol too, and
yeah,
food,
alcohol, yeah,
TV.
yeah, sugar, yeah, gluten. So the thing is, like, I'm in quite a lot of like Facebook groups with entrepreneurs and
Mm,
business men and women, and you know I do tend to find that there's a bit of a theme with the
mm.
whole like glass of wine after a hard day or a hard week, sort of relaxing and unwinding with a glass of wine. And then definitely a coffee theme, sort of coffee for breakfast. How could I start my day without coffee? And it
Yeah.
almost like seems like it's fueling this sort of like, people that are sort of self-employed, lots of people, lots of different careers. But I have noticed it in the business world. Um, but then, something like I think the only reason I know this number is because I'm in a group that's called the Fabulous 5%. Only 5% of business owners actually succeed. So it's like
I would say that's
95%
probably
failing.
pretty correct. Maybe,
And
yeah, their first time round business. I'd say that's
yeah,
pretty accurate.
so like, how more productive do you think these people could be if they ditched booze and caffeine and TV?
I believe limitless, because for
Mhm.
me personally, everything changed in my reality when I stopped drinking. And it's funny because I always had that underlying knowing that what I was doing was not serving me.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, we are the greatest tool that we have access to, and we are the only ones responsible for our success. Yes, it's great to have mentors and people that you can bounce ideas off, but they're not going to do the work for you. And if you can't do it in an unsedated state, then I don't believe that your productivity and your success will follow. It's just, yeah, it's even simple science to a point, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think like what we should maybe mention is like how have people got here? Because I know like when I was on doing a live with Ted Hannock the other day, I think he'd mentioned that, when you first drink like coffee, you don't really like it. I don't think many people
No,
like it when they find out. And even with
same with
alcohol,
wine. It's the
yeah,
same
you're
with
like,
wine. I'm like,
oh, what's
ah,
everyone saying? But if you think about like TV and film, well, we know, don't we, like the first 15 to 20 minutes of all films, like whatever one you watch, it's got, a breakfast scene with the coffee, or then somebody's walking by with a takeaway cup with coffee. And then later on in the evening, they're at a bar and they're drinking alcohol. Or it's always like really nice scenes where, like, quite often it's like, you know, the sort of the couple and they're having their glass of wine and you think, oh, that's nice, I'd quite like that. So
mm,
what do you do to get that? You drink the wine. Obviously conscious thought will not lead you to that, but this sort of the subconscious taking all of its millions of photographs per second will
yeah,
go, oh, this is what we need to do.
yeah,
um and some people might understand this and some people might not have heard this before, but the subconscious part of your brain doesn't recognize the difference between real people and screen
yeah.
people. So if you're watching lots of TV and watching lots of films, they are actually part of your tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never actually watched this film, but like when you think of, is it Bad Mums? that's
Oh,
that's a
yeah, I could only watch like about 10 seconds of the trailer because it was just so
so
mismatched with
bad.
my own energy. I'm like, ah.
But then don't you think the
Yeah.
last sort of I don't know, like last 10, 20 years there's been a lot of films that have been sort of making it quite a popular thing to, drinking alcohol, partying, even like sort of like adultery and like broken homes. It's been made really
but it's made to be cool, right? And it's made to be like appealing, and I've been oppressed as a woman and I want to just go out and do whatever I want. I'm stuck at home with the kids, and the men go out and do all this. Why can't I? It's just so mismatched with what serves us as feminine, as people, as women, as men. It's just so wrong. And the subconscious doesn't care about your happiness. It's only focused on the symbols that are predominantly featured in your day-to-day life. And as like you say, the TV that you're watching, if that's predominantly booze, adultery, partying, then it has no choice but to energy match that. So if I can give one piece of advice today, it's switch off your damn television and start feeding it better images, and start feeding it better sounds, and just and reconnect with nature. Some people might say that's corny, but nature doesn't get it wrong. Okay, nature is in complete harmony, and I think that's where it's come from, is our complete and utter disconnection with what we are inside.
Too many screens and not just enough getting outside. TV is poison for the brain. Yeah, it is. And do you know what? I was talking with people about this today. I'm just reading the chat there. If you, yeah, you can see it. Somebody put a post saying TV is poison to the brain, and I think it's really good to put these sort of negative tags on it, because you'll hear from people that you're around and other people, and it's just a norm. Oh, I love to unwind in the evening with TV, and that's like your chill out time. Everyone seems to watch TV. The TVs are getting bigger and bigger. Everyone has it like in the middle of their rooms, so it's the first thing you see when you go into the living room. And I think if you can put negative tags on things like that, I know I've heard it done with like junk food. So Jason Christoph always sort of talks about it as poison, and I think that's a really good thing to do, because you'll hear all the time that like Friday night you have your treat, you have your pizza and your glass of wine because you deserve it, you've had a hard week, and sort of giving it a really positive image. Whereas I really try now to give it a really negative image. So I'm like, yeah, it's poison for the brain. It's only about a year ago since I've started realizing all of this. And, I kind of think if I'd known this earlier, like I'm only 35, not too old, but if I'd known this earlier, like how much more productive could I have been? How much more success could I have been? Because I was really sort of driven, and I've had a few different businesses, and I've worked in different jobs and put a lot of effort in, but my sleep has always been pretty rubbish because I always drank coffee. Yeah, you're totally nodding. Like loads of people are in this situation. Drank loads of coffee and drank alcohol and loads of sugar, refined sugar in my diet, wheat in my diet.
It's just the massive overstimulation of this perfect vessel container that we have. We're eating more numbers than we are actual real food.
Yeah, and you're right.
So
we are absolutely perfect, aren't we?
But chemically,
things going in.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Overstimulation of all the senses. When you look at children that are overstimulated, how does that make them? It makes them crazy.
Yeah,
they can't sit still. And it's the same for adults. And this thing about eating for a treat. As a child, we eat for entertainment.
Yeah.
But as an adult, we should be eating for health, wealth, and longevity. So, yeah.
And I think that's a good message as well, because when you're at that point, we all see ourselves doing it. I can actually do something and be like, I'm sabotaging. I know I've sabotaged myself.
You've now got the conscious awareness to make that connection. And I think that's a big, big, big piece of the puzzle, because so many people are left, well, I've had a piece of cake, and now I just want to eat another one. I'm going to eat it anyway, but why? I know it's not good for me.
Yeah.
But once again, that's the subconscious trying to pull you back to that time where you had that perceived safety. And that's certainly helped me And you
Yeah.
can recognize the moments where it's like, okay, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. And I definitely say to people, because I do work with people quite a lot for weight loss, and we're talking about diet and talking about exercise, but then a massive bit of that is like the self-sabotage coaching. And a useful thing just to say is the exact phrase you used before, like when you're there thinking about having something, and you just say, am I eating for health, or am I eating for entertainment? And the majority of the time you can be like, oh no, I'm actually just bored, or you're just trying to find something to do. It's, whereas if you're actually picking something that's good for you and is going to help you, then you can be like, I'm eating for my health. But yeah, there's lots of things that we can do, isn't there? There's lots of little helpful, useful things. What are your favorites?
Starting your morning with what the body's designed to consume, which is water.
Yeah.
you know and in my experience, drinking coffee, it just made me actually feel like out of my head, right? It made me feel like woozy.
Mm-hmm.
Or but having a glass of water with a piece of lemon in it,
Yeah.
boom, that's going to get your organs on a high for the day.
And it's this thinking as well, if we accept the average, we accept the coffee, what are we
The
rejecting?
mediocre.
What are we
Yeah.
rejecting? Because the subconscious works like that, doesn't it? It's like it accepts something, so it automatically rejects health. It
Yep.
rejects drinking water. And like I know myself that when I drank lots of tea and coffee and things, I hardly drank any water.
I know,
And then
right?
and
And
then
all
now
it
I'm
does is
like,
dehydrate you, and it's a diarrhea.
yeah,
So you literally got no oxygen in your cells. How can you possibly make good decisions or choices, or have creative ideas in that sort of headspace?
yeah, I know. And yeah, you're right, because the caffeine thing, or MRI scans have shown it reduces blood flow to the brain by 52%. When I heard that, I was just like,
It's astounding.
I can't believe that. I had to go and look it up. I was like, surely I would have heard about this before. Like, why is this not in the papers and in the
Yeah.
media and things like that? But it's
Oh,
not, is it?
but then of course you can go deeper and deeper in the understanding, but we won't go into that today. That's
Yeah.
another conversation.
I think that would take us a long time on this.
Yeah. But what is another thing to remember is that the coffee bean is an alkaloid. It's
Mhm.
a poison.
Yeah.
It kills insects that
Yeah.
eat it so that the coffee plant can survive. And that's what you're ingesting. Yeah, it just makes no sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Alcohol, it's not called spirits for a reason, for no reason. When you're drinking it, you're literally becoming susceptible or open to being another person that's not you.
Mhm.
When people drink, oh, that wasn't me, that was the
Yeah.
alcohol.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. You're poisoning this precious container and opening yourself up to not good energy.
And it's kind of like the fear of being themselves. I know you touched on this before, but people are drinking to be somebody else because they're fearful of being actually themselves.
Yes. And I think a lot of that stems from, throughout our life, we're born enough. We're born with nothing missing. We're born complete.
Mm-hmm.
But over the years, a certain situation or a number of different situations give us that idea about ourselves that we're not enough. And so then we think, okay, well, I'm going to match that feeling of not enough by sedating myself with alcohol, junk food, poison.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important for people to know that that's not a truth. Like in the amazing words of the incredible Peter Crone, if I was to open you up physically and search for a label that said Meredith Wyness, born in New Zealand, you are not enough,
Mm-hmm.
would I find that label? No,
No.
because it simply doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think somebody in the chat was asking about, like sort of going forward and like strategies and things, like just little simple things like that, like affirmations of like, I am enough, and
Write it on your mirror. Write it on your mirror. Because the
and
subconscious has no other option but to match that. And repetition, and that's the way to reprogram it, is repetition. The subconscious is symbols and repetition.
and
It's
like what we were
completely
saying
possible.
before, the difference between real life and screen people, also positive, like what your inner talk. And I was talking to clients today about weight loss, and I said, if you have been saying to yourself that like, I can't lose weight, I'm never going to be slim, if you're repeating that to yourself all the time, then you're basically in the overweight tribe, and you're never going to be able to get out of that. You need to start saying, like, I'm so excited about like my transformation. Like, I'm so excited about the way I'm going to look when I lose all this weight. And that, and also sort of adopting a happy now policy. Like,
That's it.
we're so perfect. We should be so
Yes.
happy. We've got
Yeah.
everything to live for. We've got so much we can achieve.
Yep. And that's the thing, I think, when you're writing those manifestations and that positive affirmations, is speaking in the now. I am so happy and grateful that I am slender, fit, strong, healthy. I am so happy and grateful that I'm just where I need to be. I'm so happy and grateful for my past experiences that have been the greatest gift and my greatest teacher to help me ascend to where I rightfully need to be. So, yeah, very powerful. We're so powerful, but we've been sedated and brainwashed over the years to believe we're not. And it's simply an untruth.
It's so much. It's unbelievable, isn't it? When you actually start looking into it and you realize, even like the things like the repetition that you were talking about before, you're seeing things all over the place. What I really started to notice is all the red and blues. Like, I just can't believe how much those red and blues are being used. And once you start seeing it, you can't not see it. Yeah. I saw a clip, what's it called? It's an Adam Sandler film. I can't remember. It's got this or something like that. And it was a clip in it with the kids when they were negotiating with him. And they were basically wanting like money and toys and things. And they were getting it. They were going to get all this stuff, like hundreds of dollars and like all these toys. But they were sitting drinking Pepsi out of a blue can and poison. And they had like pizzas in the background, like kind of with the red behind it. And then the little boy took his straw out of the cup and started pretending it was a cigarette. And I just thought, oh my goodness, like if my kids had been watching this, they would have been thinking, or their subconscious, should I say, because logically they probably weren't, but their subconscious would have been like, to get the money and get the toys and be like these awesome kids, I need to drink Coke or Pepsi. I need to smoke. I need to eat pizza. And I was just like, it was, the colors were just so obvious as well. And I just thought, this is awful. Like, we're just, it's mind control, isn't it? It is. We're just being controlled.
Tell, lie, vision. So and I think what people don't realize is that the blue and red is what we perceive to be authority. Political parties, blue and red, police lights, blue and red. But really, no man or woman can have authority over another man or woman. That's just simply, it's not how it works. And I think about what's happening now in our current situation. If everybody switched off their TV and radio, would you know that there was anything wrong? No, you wouldn't.
No.
And you'd be far more connected to your friends, your neighbors, your family. You'd be far more creative. And in that creative space, that's just where the magic happens. That's where you actually feel like you've reconnected with your infinite wisdom and who we are truly supposed to be here on this earth during this experience. And I mean, that might go a bit out there for some people who are listening, but that's a knowing that we all have. And the more that we sedate it, the further away we're going to be from a place of contented happiness.
Yeah. Well, I can remember when I gave up TV like almost a year ago. And then I remember being with a group of friends and saying, like, they were all talking about all the stuff they'd been watching over like our first lockdown, and like box sets and, loads of different series and things. And then they turned to me and asked me what I'd been watching. I said, well, I've actually given up TV. I haven't watched any TV. And they all just looked round at me like, what? Like, they didn't know what to say.
With your time.
And they were like, yeah, what have you been doing then? Like, and I'm like, yeah, loads of things. Like, I've set up a business. I've, started learning guitar again. I've been like spending time with my kids. I've been doing so much, like just lovely walks out in nature and just like you said, reconnecting. And why wouldn't you want to do that sort of stuff rather than sit in front of like a screen. Typically, like most people do tend to like eat mostly junk food because those messages are coming at us, and yeah, like it was just a really hard one for me to explain to them because they were just so shocked.
Yeah.
It's what the tribe is doing, isn't it?
Yeah. And that was the thing about me going back to drinking coffee when we had our lockdown here in New Zealand. And, you know, thankfully for the wise words of our awesome friend and mentor and coach, Jason Christoph, he helped put it into perspective. He said, well, you know, it's the herd that's feeling that fear as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to align with strongest herd. Doesn't matter if that herd is sick, sedated, overweight, and unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it was like, wow, having that understanding was so much easier to then give it away again.
Mm-hmm.
Because an adult in their true, full adult power doesn't need a herd to be safe.
Yeah.
You can stand alone and handle anything that the world throws at you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you can't do that if you're sedated.
And you can't do that if you're sedated.
No.
So, you know, and like, I think like some people, you know, there's a very, very small percentage, like we said before, that can be successful in some ways, when they're sedated and things. But, and like, because I do the weight loss stuff, and nutrition, people will say, well, you know, so and so, they do this, they drink loads of caffeine, drink loads of alcohol, and they're super skinny and they look brilliant. But then there's so many different ways in which they could be like unhappy, or you know, that you just don't know what's going on in their life.
Yeah.
And like, we know that if you are sedated, it's very hard to have a happy and like productive life as well.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people perhaps don't put two and two together, that they're actually probably sedating pain or trauma from childhood that's been shelved and put away because that's easier. And the way to keep that buried and not have to deal with it, of course, is to drink and eat junk food and eat coffee.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that fall into that group, I think, isn't there?
I think those people are the ones that have like so much to show and give. If they can be successful in that state, imagine what that would be like unsedated.
Yeah,
oh
exactly.
my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
My own healing and my own sober journey, and losing weight, I had a positive ripple effect to people around me. And it said that, you know, it's written somewhere that there's apparently, it affects 50,000 other people passively that you don't even know. I mean, I wouldn't know 50,000 people. And it instigates change in them on their own healing journey. So if there's a really, really incredible video, you can maybe put it up in the comments, the 100th monkey, the 100th monkey theory. So that is incredible. And I highly recommend looking at that because it does explain an awful lot. If we think, you know, as a human race that we're not connected by something greater than just being able to have a physical conversation with somebody, then you're missing a little.
Do you know what? If you had told me that a year ago when I was completely sedated, I would just be
crazy
like,
lady.
oh yeah, total crazy lady. But like, it really does make sense now, you know. It and that video is a really nice one to show it actually. So I'll link it there. I just noticed someone put something in the chat. A dumbed down society is easier to control.
Yep.
You know, and that's the thing. It's like, we have to, you know, I don't want to get dark about it, but like we are being controlled by all of the subliminal messages, and it's not easy. It's not easy to sort of live in that world and then still have a really good output of health and happiness and wealth, success. And so we just need to kind of control what's going in. You know, you have got the control to switch off the TV. You have got the control not to watch the news. And you control what's going in your mouth. So once you start putting all that good stuff in, like, your success and your happiness and everything else is just, you know, it's unlimited, really, isn't it?
Our inner world is an exact reflection. Our outer world, sorry, is a direct reflection of our inner world. You know, the reality that we see out here, we feel like it's out of control. But the one thing you can do is, like you said, you can make those simple decisions to switch off the TV. And I guarantee you, I'd almost give like 100% money back guarantee that your life will shift very, 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 very quickly from just doing those simple things.
Yeah.
Because that's how I felt in my experience. And I'd just like to mention, I've got two best girlfriends, and we've pretty much shared this sober wellness journey together. My best friend, Nikki, she had a one-on-one with Jason Christoph just over 3.5 years ago. And she also struggled with alcohol. And after the session with him, she stopped drinking the next day. And then I was so inspired. This is what I mean about the ripple effect. I was so inspired by the fact that she was able to do it that I followed suit 3 weeks later. And we've been able to, share this incredible journey and our realizations, and just remember the beauty and be reminded of the beauty that's everywhere.
Yeah, that's right. And
the
fact that you're now helping people as well overcome their self-sabotage, like the impact is huge.
Yeah. And it's easy because I'm not waking up tired or hungover going, oh, I've got to talk to people. It's like, right, who's next? Who wants to go next?
Yeah. And the good thing is, when you're thinking about, the three things we wanted to talk about, which was like the booze, the caffeine, and the TV, it's like, give them up. Try and give them up, because, if you don't like it, you can always start them again. But the reality is once you've given them up, you don't want to start them again. You realize how beautiful your life can be without them. And
completely.
Some people have a little like relapse, or they'll have another cup of coffee, and that's just
actually
sort of
okay.
a natural sort of sabotage, but that you can overcome it.
Completely. And it's also it's a guide. It's not a goblin if you have a relapse. Our pain is a protector, but if we try to keep pushing it down and hiding it, it's just a domino effect of just feeling like crap. And never really understanding why. You've got to make friends with your pain. You do. And honestly, it was terrifying, the thought of doing that. But it was like being reborn again for me when I stopped drinking. I've never felt more free in my life. Never. Except maybe when I was like 6 or 7 years old, riding my bike down a big hill. But it's the same kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And to relive that sort of feeling of being completely and utterly free and not handcuffed to an addiction, why wouldn't you just want to relive that every day?
Yeah. And in adulthood, not many adults are feeling like that these days, because they're so sedated.
Possible to be so much more, and so easily, with, like we say, just the small changes.
Massive impact. So like one of the things on the advertisement for this live was so how successful could you be? Could you make 1 million?
Oh, 100%. Why? Anything is possible, right?
And that's the thing, isn't it? It's like you can have a big dream could be like,
the bigger the better, and be specific. Okay, when you're talking about how the universe works, and when you're so highly in tune and connected with it, and connected to your greatness, why not? Why would you play small when you can just aim higher than the stars? Yeah.
And I like it's so nice when you start to see it as well, because when I set the business up, like sort of, I don't know, 6 months ago or maybe a bit longer, and I had like different ideas in my head, and I could like envisage myself doing different things, and they're just like, I suppose they were quite simple things, but for me it was quite a big deal, because I went from working in a job like teaching, come away from that, which is sort of your regular income, and what you're doing, and it's all just sort of pretty sort of straightforward, to setting up your own business, which is
safe,
like full on.
pretty safe. We were in that
Yeah,
safe
it was
zone.
it was so safe. It was so safe
and highly boring.
But the thing is as well, it's like, doesn't matter how much effort you put in, you're not going to get like paid.
No.
You're not going to earn more. You're not going to, do you know what I mean? It's like, and so yeah, I had like different, I think, thoughts in my head when I was trying to think about my future self. And I, because I like all this stuff with the nutrition. I've trained as a nutritionist, and I
Fantastic.
do a lot of weight loss and that. And I could see myself, doing online webinars. And I was like, that would be really nice because it's like my teaching, but with stuff that I really love. And I could see myself doing sort of like video cooking sessions and things, showing people how to like cook
Yeah,
really simple stuff.
fantastic.
And I had all these different images in my head. And I kind of just thought, I can't do anything about them just now, but that's where we'd like to get to. And I've just started doing that. Like, I have just got the first few loaded up. I did a
Yep.
webinar today to paying clients. And
Yay.
do you know when you just start to see, you're like, I had those thoughts, I put some steps in place, and now it's happening. Right, what do I want to do next, and what do I want to do next? And it really does make you think you can achieve anything, absolutely anything.
Absolutely anything. When my relationship ended, not quite 2 years ago, a very long-term relationship, I was broken. I was heartbroken. But I was incredibly grateful for the fact that if I hadn't stopped sedating myself a year earlier, or 2 years earlier, I would never have overcome it in the way that I did. I allowed myself to be broken and sad, because it's letting go of the fairy tale, the ideal that you thought you wanted. But then it made way for actually my purpose. And I was like, right, what do I want to do? I want to do what Jason Christoph does. And then I happened to email him in the middle of the night. and I said, how do I do what you do? And he's like, well, funny you should say that, because I'm just designing a course. Yeah. And then it just happens, you see? Yep. You let go of the old and it makes way for the new.
Yeah. And someone's put in the chat, like, action, what was it? Action changes things, ACT. Like, but just taking action, like, because a lot of people, like, when I chat to them and they'll say, oh, I really hate my job. And I'm like, well, why are you in your job? Like, you've just got to
fear.
And it's fear. And it's like, this idea that, well, I've got to earn the money to pay the mortgage, and just that this feeling of being trapped. And again, it's like, this is not by chance. This is not by coincidence. This is have been programmed to be like this, the fear of not making your mortgage payments, and the fear of, starting something new and not making enough money and things. And it's all the worse for the sedation of like caffeine and alcohol and
it just amplifies those feeling of overwhelm.
Yeah.
It just amplifies it. Yes, there's scary moments. Yes, there's fearful times. But once again, those are all guides. It's a guide guiding you to where you really need to be or want to be. If we just let go of trying to control it so much and just actually accept what is, that's when I reckon the magic happens.
And so if somebody was thinking about giving up alcohol in particular, and they were a bit sort of scared and they didn't know where to start, what would your advice be?
It's okay. Feel into that feeling of being scared, because that's completely normal, because you have been in this familiar, safe place of drinking alcohol for however long you've been doing it. And change is scary, but just also tap into that knowing that everything is going to be okay, and it's going to be more than okay. And just know that you're enough, and you don't actually need anything added to make you more perfect. You just are.
Yeah.
And it's completely possible to stop. Yeah, it's just I never thought that it would even be possible. I never could imagine a life without drinking. But here I am 3.5 years later, and it doesn't even enter my head at all. No cravings, no nothing. It's non-existent. It's neutral. I have a neutral relationship with alcohol. Yeah.
Brilliant. And like when I was giving up caffeine, like, we touched on this before, but it was only because it was a bit of a challenge. Like, I saw it as a challenge. I quite like a challenge. And Jason had put that challenge, across through like social media. It wasn't directly to me, but I was like,
too.
oh really? And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, I'll
Okay.
give this a go. And like, I liked coffee. I loved coffee. I was like, I didn't want to give it up. I thought, why would I give it up? And and it's not until you actually do it that when you see all like the positives that you're just like, oh, seriously, this, I could have given this up ages ago. This, this has been holding
Yeah.
me back all of this
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think the recommendations to anyone watching, anyone that like,
Yeah.
wants to give it a
Yeah. And
go, just
just
try it.
take away the guilt as well. I think we're conditioned to also feel guilty for all of these addictions,
Mm-hmm.
but then not realizing the connection between why we're doing them in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
It's a child-based adaptation of pain that you've experienced. It's a coping mechanism, right? And that's okay. You don't need to feel bad about what you're doing. It just is.
Mm-hmm.
When you take away that guilt that surrounds being addicted to, because there is an awful amount of guilt and shame. Well, it was for me, it was terrible. I didn't want to admit to anybody I was an alcoholic. I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
stop feeling that, just take away the guilt. When you take away that guilt, it's like, well, how do you feel? You feel free.
Mm-hmm.
And then the need or the want to drink or smoke or whatever becomes less and less and less. Yeah.
And like, it's worth remembering that like everyone is tribal. And so, somebody is saying no to, like, you could be out in the bar and somebody's saying, no, I'm not drinking. And what does everyone immediately do? They're like, go on, have one. And it's kind of like trying
What's
to,
wrong with you?
what's wrong with you? Do you not know how to have fun?
I had all the responses for that because I was just like, right, because I was so clear-headed, it's okay, right. What's wrong with you was one of the ones that I got quite a lot
Right.
of. And I said, nothing, everything is right with me.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, okay.
All
But
right.
then the vast
That's good.
majority of people were like, wow, that is so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that genuine human curiosity going, oh, well, she's really cool, she's funny, she's outgoing, but she doesn't drink.
Mm-hmm.
How does she do that and still feel like she's having fun or she's confident? So that starts that curiosity with, well, if she can do it, then perhaps I can do it.
Yeah. So you've left that tribe,
Not
you
completely.
and you're pulling people to
Yeah.
your new tribe, aren't you? Which is
But you
brilliant.
actually find, because people are like, oh, what about socializing? You actually find that you just only really socialize with the people that you want to be around, and it's just a
Yeah.
whole different energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or actually, I enjoy my own company.
And that's
I'm
a
very
really
happy with my
powerful
own
thing.
company.
That's a really good
Yeah.
thing to be able to be in your own company. I know that was one thing that Jason told me, that I like to be around people and I should try and enjoy my own company more. They're all stuck in there still.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, you
Cool.
can go out, you can still socialize, but you don't need it because you're absolutely perfect the way you are.
I
And
like to
then
refer to sober as a superpower. And
yeah.
yeah, that's exactly what it feels like.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, I think we're going to be so successful in our businesses, Meredith, because
Who's
the sky is
listening and
the limit.
watching?
I know. And
Yeah.
so it would be really nice to actually, we'll have to do another chat
Great.
sort of down the road and see like how everything is going and how sort of how successful you can be, because I think you probably feel very similar to me right now, in that like just want to like grab it with both hands and like embrace it, and like so much excitement and positivity for the future now, which I think if you are sedated, I don't think you can have that, or you don't have that nearly as much. So just really exciting about
Yep.
about things to come, really.
It's full power enjoyment level.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on and talking to me, Meredith. And you're going to go and have a lovely day in the sunshine, I think, aren't you?
Sure am, with my soulmate.
Oh, brilliant. That's lovely. I'm going to go to bed now. It's the other side of the world. But
Sleep peacefully.
thanks for everyone coming on and joining us. And I'll share this on Facebook. And we'll put a few links below so people can get to us if they want to join any groups or contact any of us on our pages.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
see you soon.
Thanks. Bye.